scope creep, what it is and how to manage it. Sorry, just a moment. All right. So this is my table of content. These are the things we'll be talking about today. First of all, before we talk about scope creep, we have to understand what a project scope is. Talk about scope creep. Can you guys hear me? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. So after we've established what a scope creep is, we'll then look at how it arises, and then some of the effects scope creep can have on the project. And
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Sean. I think you have a lag there in the network. So after that, we'll talk about how to manage scope creep. Then I conclude and take questions. So let's get into it. All right, so first of all, what is a project scope? So before you carry out a project, there are certain things that you have to get to know what the project is all about, the things that are needed to carry out that project, what the deliverables are going to be, and all those things. So in project management, scope is the defined features and functions of the project, or the scope of work needed to finish a project. All right, so all the things you need to know about that particular product or service, as it may be that you're trying to deliver, you need to know everything about that particular product, and all these things fall into the project scope. All right, let's continue. So what is scope creep? So imagine you are a project manager in charge of a mobile app development project. All right, you've done your homework as a project manager, as a diligent project manager. You've established what the features of that particular mobile app are going to be, all the things that need to be worked on, the deliverables and all that. And then out of the blue, out of nowhere, like surprisingly, the client comes up to you and says he or she wants a particular feature to be added to that mobile app. And this is coming at a time when the execution phase has already started. All right, so this takes you by surprise. This is just what I've just explained now is what the scope creep is. All right, so these are changes, continuous or uncontrolled growth in the scope of a project at any point after the project begins. Like I said, when the execution phase has already started off, and these changes, client comes and makes a request for a particular change or a particular feature to be added to that product. This just explains what scope creep is. If you can see my screen, the image there tells you, okay, let's add this feature. And this is going to cost you, because definitely when you're adding another feature, if that change is approved, it will cost you time and it will cost you money. Right? So these changes or growth in the scope of a project are usually unplanned and sometimes unexpected, hence the word creep, which is why as a good project manager, you should make provisions for them in case they come up, and a lot of times they do come up. Can you guys see the image on my screen? Can you see the little picture on my screen? So let's say you've already started work on the project, and this illustration clearly tells you what I'm talking about. Here it says, I hired a creep to help determine our product's features. And then the guy says, we need more features. Then there's the project manager there with the red and black tie. He's frustrated because he didn't plan for this to happen. He didn't expect it. And they've already started working on the project. And you're coming up with this request now, which means you have to make adjustments to the original plan. That is, if the change is accepted. All right, so how does scope creep arise? So scope creep can arise when the scope of a project is not properly defined, documented, or controlled. All right, so let's say, for example, as a diligent project manager, you've actually defined the scope of the project properly, you've done your diligence and the proper documentation and all that. there are some other reasons, there are some other things or some other avenues where scope creep can arise, and they include poor change control. If you don't have a good change control structure, it can lead to scope creep affecting your project. The next one there is lack of proper initial identification of what is required to bring about the project objectives. Then you have weak project manager or executive sponsor. Then poor communication between parties. Communication is always important. Whatever you're doing, make sure make sure there's proper communication between all the parties, both the stakeholders, clients, and the project manager, team working on the project. Make sure you're communicating. And then lack of initial product versatility. Now, this image here shows common causes of scope creep. First one there is lack of clearly defined scope. If you've not defined the scope properly and done your proper documentation and all that, lack of clearly defined contracts, lack of communication between clients and team, delay in addressing critical issues. The next one there is poor feature prioritization. Sorry, that word confuses me. Then you have lack of change management procedures, lack of data-driven decision making, improper management of new requests, and lack of user testing and feedback. So these are some of the common causes of scope creep. Now let's look at the effects of scope creep. Before we go into that, let's just talk about some factors that can cause scope creep. Here you have not having a well-defined scope baseline. If you don't have a well-defined scope baseline, it can lead to you having scope creep or scope creep affecting your project. Then lack of enough clarity or information requirements. If you don't get all the requirements needed for that project, or if you're not clear on particular requests, that's before the project starts off, before you start working on the particular project, some things might become mixed up when you've actually started working on that project and you'd like some more clarity. That's when you realize that you didn't have enough clarity on that particular aspect of the project, and it might affect your project. Then unavailability of the right stakeholders. You have conflicting ideas and opinions. These are also some of the causes of reasons why scope creep can arise. You have lack of proper and time-bound feedback mechanism, which also boils down to communication. If you're not communicating properly, if information is not reaching you when it is supposed to reach you, it can also affect your project. It can also allow scope creep to set in. Then you have promising the mood. You have to pay attention to this, because if you're promising the client that you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you know that you've not actually done the proper, you're not sure you can deliver on that, please don't do this. Because then you'll have the client expecting those things that you've actually promised, and you'd have to deliver. Otherwise, it's going to be bad for your reputation and PR. So the next one there is B to outdo the competition. And then PM with poor leadership skills. As a project manager, you should have good leadership skills so as to carry everyone along and make sure that everyone is sticking to their own side of the contract. Now let's still look at some of the effects of scope creep. So having known some of the factors that can bring about scope creep, these factors can cause some damage to your project. These are some of the effects that you can have on your project. First of all, there you have continuous firefighting. That is always having urgent problems that you need to attend to. So, always having problems or urgencies that you need to attend to, thereby delaying or causing delays in time of executing a particular aspect of that project. Then you have conflicting interests and priorities. The next there is overloaded and overworked resources. When you've not done your proper accounting, when you do not do your proper documentation, and this scope creep comes into play or comes to affect your project, you definitely have overloaded and overworked resources, in the sense that some of the resources that you've initially planned into the project might not be enough. and then you have to overstretch and find means to get more resources to work with. The next one there is rising expenses and investments. Definitely, when you have scope creep affecting your projects, expenses will rise and investments will rise as well. Then you have dissatisfied stakeholders. Let's say, for example, a client comes to you and makes a request, and you're not willing to oblige because it is not, or it wasn't in the initial plan. Sorry, excuse me. Or you as a project manager, you didn't do a proper research, and you realize that, okay, this is something that's going to be needed for this project, and you did not think of that, you didn't put it in plan. Definitely your stakeholders will not be happy with that, because then you would have to put these things into play. You have to change the original plan, which will take a longer time to deliver that particular project to the clients. Then you have battered and demotivated employees. All these things will also bring down the morale of your team, those working on the project with you, because you see, every time this thing keeps coming up, they'll get tired of having to rework the plan and having to redo some things that they're going back to change some things they've already worked on, and they feel that we should move on to the next stage. We are done with this particular stage. Let's move on to the next. But if this keeps happening, you keep drawing them back, they become demotivated and their morale drops. So, and that affects your project as well. Sorry. All right, so down to how to manage scope creep. First of all, the most effective way to manage scope creep is to protect your project from it entirely. Because if scope creep steps in, like if you've already started working on your project and you begin to experience some new, or your client comes over and tells you need to add this, you need to add that, and you keep getting change requests here and there, I think it's kind of difficult to manage it at that point. So the best thing you can do is always do your best to protect your project from it. Do not let it affect your project in the first place. Do not let it come in. So there are certain ways to accomplish this. First is to invoke the scope baseline or the scope of work, that's SOW. So the healthy practice of consulting the baseline proves an effective strategy in holding off pushy clients. In other words, it also reminds them of what they signed up for and puts the extra onus on them to be judicious with their requests. So sometimes clients might be overstepping. They might be asking for more than they've already agreed to. So when you always revisit your scope of work and you remind them, this is what you signed up for, this is the contracts we went into, these are the things you asked for. And so if they are not willing to do that, if they are not willing to live within the boundaries of what the scope baseline provides for them, then it's going to really bother the project. And as a project manager, you should find ways to always manage because as a project manager, you're not only managing the project, you're also managing the clients as well and your employees. So you should find proper ways to manage the clients and remind them that this is what you signed up for. Please let us be judicious with our requests. So the next one there is communication and feedback. Like I said, communication is always important in whatever you're doing. And as a project manager, it should be one of your top priorities, communication and feedback. So define a clear communication criteria in terms of frequency of updates, means of updates, could be reports or meetings, and timing of these updates. This keeps your clients updated with actual status and helps ease any anxiety, plus helps build their confidence and trust. Now, the next one there, the next way you can manage scope creep is assess and estimate. So when a client comes up to you and says, I want this feature added, you don't really have to, telling them no outrightly is not the best thing to do. Because as a project manager, some of these requests that they make might actually be useful to that project. So, sorry, excuse me. The best response you can give to them at that point is Let me assess and estimate the time and cost implications of the requested change. So if the person is serious, if the client is serious with a particular change and they want to continue, they will definitely want to see what you've done, what you've assessed, and what you've come up with. If not, that person, you will just word that person off with those words. Let me assess and estimate the time and cost implications of the requested change. If the person is not serious, once you say those words, they will back off and let you do your work with your team. But if the person is serious about that change and they really want to see that change implemented, they would like to see your assessment. And then from the assessment you've made, make an informed decision. Like then they will have a clearer idea of what it entails, of what it's going to entail to actually effect this change. Then if the client wishes to proceed with that change, then you have the opportunity to generate additional revenue and invoke your change management process. Like I said earlier, you should always have a strong change management process. Now, yeah, this is it. The fourth way of managing scope creep is build a strong change control structure. All right. So having a robust change control structure is very important. It can never be overemphasized. Never have a contract without a change control clause. So that when the change is requested, there is a series of approvals that are triggered. This leads to enhanced attention on the requested changes and the required focus to decide if it is needed at all. So in project management, there is what is called a change request form, all right? So that's when the client makes a request for a change, there are certain details you need to put into that change request form, like what the change is, the time it is coming, the effect it's going to have on the project, and if it is important at all. That's when you've done your proper assessment, you determine if this change is going to be important, like if it is necessary to implement it at that point in time.
Mr. Michael.
Yes, Mr. Jacob.
Sorry for the interruption. We
All
just
right.
have 2 minutes left.
Oh, okay, I'm almost done.
Okay.
All right. So when you have a robust change control structure, nothing will take you by surprise, because then when that change is made, you document it, you put it down. This helps you make your assessment to know if this change is going to be beneficial to the project and all the stakeholders involved. Otherwise, you'd have to explain to the client that this change will not be able to effect it because you've made your assessment and this is what you've come up with. You've seen that it's not going to help the project in any way, or it's not going to be possible to effect that change at that point in time. So, in conclusion, we now know what scope creep is, what the causes are, effects, and how to manage it. So it is worthy to note that scope creep can arise as a result of poor management skills on the project manager's part. So as a project manager, you always have to do your homework to determine the requirements of the project, get all the stakeholders to be on the same page before kicking off the project officially. And lastly, always have a robust change control structure to properly account for requested changes to the original project plan. So also note, it's not included in this, this presentation. There is another system, or there is another method of managing scope creep, which is called penalty. You can attach a penalty, say attach it as a clause in the contract, all right? Which it kind of goes like this. It restricts that particular project to changes, like it doesn't allow room for change. And if say the client or the project manager tends to come up with an idea, say, I think this is something that we missed, or I think this is something that should be part of the project or part of the product that we overlooked or we didn't see at the time we were making the plan for the project, or at the time we were determining the scope of the project. So what that penalty clause does is to avoid things like that. And if it should come up, then a penalty is attached. The penalty is given to whoever comes up with that idea. But it is not advisable. It is not very professional as well, because it demoralizes both project manager, the team members who are working on that project, and even sometimes the client. So it is not advisable. So the best ways, or the suggested ways to go about managing project scope, or to manage your project to avoid scope creep affecting it is the other ones, the other methods I've stated out, assess and assessing and checking if the change is going to be, whether it's going to be important, and then having a robust change control structure and the rest of them. So yeah, that's it. Always remember to communicate, because sometimes these things arise from poor communication mechanisms. So yeah, I've come to the end of my presentation. If you have questions, please ask. Let me take questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Michael. The questions will come after the second presenter, so that we'll be able to meet up with time. So you'll just be around so that if any question erupts at that time, you can take it.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Love it.
Yes.
You can share your screen.
All right.
I'll start.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we
Can
can.
you? Okay. Let me turn on my video. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ekeocha. In today's second presentation, we're going to look into system development life cycle. The reason for this topic is because there are some software developers, whenever system is being initialized for them to build, they will just jump into and start implementing the system without knowing that there are some steps and phases they should undergo for them to build effective and working system. And as a software developer, there are 3 things you should have at the back of your mind whenever system is being initialized to you. You should have at the back of your mind that you're not developing for yourself, you're building to satisfy the user. Number 2 is that you're building with budgets. You're building to increase the business value of the organization. Number 3 is you're building with timely. You're building to meet up the time that the system is required. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the 4 phases of system development life cycle. We start from the planning phase. Under planning phase, we're going to look into project initiation and feasibility analysis. Then we're going to look into analysis phase, then designing phase, and last phase of system development life cycle, which is the implementation phase, and our summary. In our planning phase, you can see this man planning on how to go about the project being initialized to him. The planning phase is the first phase of system development life cycle, where you're going to understand the fundamental reason why the system being given to you should be built. And you can do this in 2 ways. We have project initiation. The project initiation is the moment the system that is given to you is identified. Moments where the new system is when project initiation take place. Can anyone hear me? Hello.
I hear you. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello, I can hear you.
We can hear you.
All right. Thank you. So we have feasibility analysis. Feasibility analysis examines the key aspects of the proposed system. And in your feasibility analysis, you are going to identify some certain things needed for you to build that system. And this can be done in 3 ways. You do your technical feasibility, where you can ask yourself, can I build this system? Or can we build this system in the case of teamwork? You're going to do your economic feasibility, where you ask yourself, will this system provide business value to the organization? Remember, you are building with budget. You are building to increase the business value of the organization. So in your economic feasibility, you are going to ask and analyze yourself and say, can this system that I'm about to build provide business value to the organization? Will it increase costs or profit to the organization? These are the things that you're going to take care of in your economic feasibility. Then you're going to do your organizational feasibility, where you're going to ask yourself, if I finally build this system, will it be used? Or will I end up building what nobody will use, which is a failed software? So these are the things you are going to carry out during your planning phase. And that will take us to the next phase of system development life cycle, which is the analysis phase. You can see these people analyzing on how to go about the project being initialized to them. The analysis phase is the second stage or phase of system development life cycle, where you are going to evaluate your plan. You're going to analyze your plan by asking yourself, who will use the system? What type of people is going to use the system that I'm about to build? Are they literate about technology, or are they illiterate about technology? How will this system look like? Should I add the icons that will be directing these people on how to use the system? These are the things you are going to analyze. You're going to ask yourself, what will the system do? What type of work will this system do? Is it a financial transacting system that whenever I make any mistake, it will bring financial loss to the organization? Or is it a critical software? What I mean by critical software is software that deals with life, like aircraft. So you are going to ask yourself, is it a critical software? Whenever I made a mistake, it will lead to the loss of life. These are the things you're going to analyze during your analysis phase. You're going to ask yourself again, where will this system be used? Is it an online system or offline system? You're going to analyze that. You're going to ask yourself again, when will this system be used? Very, very important. Remember, as a software developer, 3 things you should have in your mind whenever system is being initialized to you. You're not building for yourself. You're building with budget and timely. Very, very important. This is where you're going to analyze your time. When will this system can be used? When is this system required? You're going to analyze that. Let's take, for instance, assuming that a wealthy businessman meets you as a software developer to build a site, an e-commerce site that he will use and advertise his goods during Xmas period. Maybe this man is selling clothes. And you know that clothes every year comes with its own different designs of clothes. And this man is trying to advertise his goods from August. And the project is being initialized to you by February or March. And you fail to analyze. You don't know that some of the things that you need to build that system is not available. You just jump into and start implementing the system. Reaching July now, the man is waiting for you to call him to come and test the site. And the man did not see your brake lights. So August, September, December, nobody heard from you. And maybe by January or February, you come and tell this man, I am done with your project. So what will the man use the system do by January? The man is trying to advertise his goods from August so that he will sell his business, his clothes during Xmas season. So for you not, such system is a failed software. So for you to meet up the requirements, you have to analyze well and make sure that all the requirements that you needed is available. And in this analysis phase, you are going to gather enough information about the system that you are about to build. And during this phase, you are meant to examine the already existing similar system of that system that you are about to build and identify the constraints that you are going to add in your own that will attract more users. These are the things that you are going to carry on your analysis phase as a software developer. And that will take us to the next phase of system development life cycle, which is the designing phase. The designing phase is the 3rd phase of system development life cycle, where you are going to put all your plans, all your analysis down in form of drawing. Just as the builder of house draw the architectural structure of the building that they're about to build, they will capture all the features that they need, how many rooms, how many toilets, how many kitchen, how many bedroom. They will capture it in a cardboard paper or any other tool. The same way a software developer is meant to draw his system down, capture all the entities that are going to use the system. You can see the drawing on my screen. This man is building a tool source digital download system. This is the system at the center. And this man is able to capture all the entities that are going to use his system. You can see customer, payments clearing house, marketing manager. He's able to capture all this, and he's able to capture all the work that individual entities are going to perform in the system. You can see he's able to capture that customer will be able to search for the music, select music, enter his information, pay to the system. Then look at this arrow. The system should be enabled to download the music to the customer and do email promotion. Maybe the reason for this email promotion is maybe at the end of the year, they should be able to know the customer that download the highest music in their site, and maybe there's a reward for them. You can see the payments clearinghouse. The payments clearinghouse should enable payment authorization to the system, and the system should pay to the payments clearinghouse. All these things is captured in his design. You can see the marketing manager. The system, look at the arrow. The system should sell pattern to the marketing manager, and the marketing manager should promote decision to the system. All these things are captured in his design. Remember that short note is better than long memory. You might know all these, or maybe you start implementing and you fail to capture all of them in your drawing. You might forget one feature and end up building a failed software. Okay. Let's take, for instance, in the designing phase, you're going to design your architecture. The architecture design is how the structure of your system, how your system will look like. The structure of your.
Sorry for the interruption. You just have 5 minutes more.
All right, I'll soon round up. So you will design your interface, how your system is going to, what customers will do and what the individuals will see whenever they enter into your system. You design your database, how your system will look like. And at the end of your design, you are advised to go back to your feasibility analysis and your plan and re-examine them to know if there is any decision that you will change. The reason for this is because maybe at the end of your design, you found out that all the features that you needed in your system, all the feature or what you required for you to build your system is not available at the moment, that maybe the company needs to go and hire or borrow for you to build the system. And you know that you not meet up to the budget or to the time. Remember, you're developing to increase the business value. So you have to go back to your feasibility analysis and reanalyze. So, and that will take us to the next phase of system development lifecycle because of our time. We have the last phase of system development lifecycle, which is the implementation phase. The implementation phase is the last phase of system development lifecycle, where the system is actually built. This phase is the phase that got most attention because for most systems, it is the longest and expensive single part of the development process. As a software developer in your implementation phase, having designing your system, you are meant to look at the system that you design and know the language that will best implement the system. So even if you are copying code, you are advised that you copy code and paste somewhere else. Don't paste it in the environment that you are building your system, because for you to debug code that you copied is very hard, especially in some languages that doesn't point at the particular line that the error is being found. In summary, the system development projects are required to follow essentially the same fundamental process called the system development life cycle, which starts from the planning phase, from your planning phase to the analysis phase to the design phase, and the system is actually built, which is the implementation phase. Before I summarize, or before I conclude, initially I made you to understand that software or system development life cycle have 4 main phases. We start from the planning phase. Under planning, I made you to understand the project, what is called project initiation and feasibility analysis. And I also made you to understand that the second phase of system development life cycle is the analysis phase, where you're going to ask yourself and evaluate your plan. I also made you to understand that the third phase of system development life cycle is the designing phase, where you're going to capture all you have planned and all your analysis down in form of drawing. You can use Gantt chart or pen chart or any other tool in your design. And the last phase of system development life cycle, which is the implementation phase, where the system is actually built. And I also made you to understand that as a software developer, that you should have three things at the back of your mind whenever system is being initialized for you to build. You should know that you are not building for yourself, you are building for user satisfaction. You should know also that you are building with budget to increase the business value of the organization. Number three is timely. You are building to meet up to the time that the system is required. So with this, I've come to the end of my presentation. Any question?
Thank you, Lovett, for the presentation. The audience, it's time for question for Ms. Lovett and Mr. Michael. So the floor is open. Question time. No question. No.
Hello?
Patrick, what are you speaking? Are you trying to speak?
Sorry, if you're talking to me, I can't really hear you. Are you talking to me?
You have question for the audience, for the presenters?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay, if there's no question for the presenters,
So we can ask.
yes, Michael will come up first.
Okay.
You have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes to evaluate your audience.
Okay.
Based on your.
So my first question is, can anyone briefly explain what scope creep means? Anyone at all? Just briefly explain what you understand by scope creep.
Hello?
Yeah, Victor, I can hear you.
Okay. Basically, from what you explained, scope creep is like when you guys have sorry about that. When they've given you what they want, you understand, and you guys have defined, you've talked about, you've generated ideas, you've worked about how to go about the project, like how the project will be executed, things to do and all. And it's about time to, you've executed everything and it's about time to launch the product. Then the client now comes back and tell you that, okay, we want this on the project, we want this to be added. So that's what we call, or that's what I understand by scope creep. Am I on?
Yes. You have a valid point. But then scope creep usually comes when the project has started, like when the execution phase has started. Rarely does it come up when it's about to be launched, when the final product is about to be launched. But most of the time, it comes up when the execution phase has already begun. It's right before launching or right before the closing stage. Yeah, but thank you, Victor. You have a basic understanding of scope creep. All right, so I have one more question. Just another question. All right. So what are the ways, or can anyone tell me 2 ways you can manage scope creep? Just 2. Anyone?
Hello?
Yes, is that Victor?
Yeah. The first one he said we should not even try to think about the like you should try as much as possible to avoid it. But the steps or the prepare or the plan that you can use is I think communication feedback. Hello,
Yeah. I heard that. Thank you.
am I on track?
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay, and the second one is I can't really remember the heading. You talk about maybe when the client comes back and say he wants this, then you bring them back to that. Okay, this is what we talk about. Like, okay, this is the plan. This is what we've agreed on initially because you've documented everything.
Yes, thank you. That is invoking the scope baseline or the scope of work. Yeah, you're on track. Thank you very much, Victor. Yeah, so Mr. Jacob, that's all from me.
All right, thank you. Love it. Over to you.
Right. So my question is, from what I've said so far, who will tell me the 3 things you should have in your mind whenever system is being initialized to you? Can anyone hear me?
Ms. Love, you can call anybody by name.
I don't know.
I can hear you now.
Okay, you guys know hear what I said before.
You can call
Yes.
anybody by name.
Yes, come again.
Come
I
again
said-
with your question.
I said from what I've explained so far, who will tell me 3 things you should have in your mind whenever system is being given to you to develop?
Okay. Let me say one. You work with your budget first.
That's cool.
Let me say one. We work with analysis.
Analysis qua.
Which one is what?
Okay, all right. I said whenever system is being initialized to you, you should have in your mind that you are not building for yourself. You are building to satisfy the user, timely and with budgets.
You talked about budget and okay. You talked about timeliness, budgets, and then you talked about the purpose. You said what is it used for now? Why is it being developed? I think they were the things you talked about.
All right, that's cool. My last question is
It's okay, Ms. Lovett. It's okay. Thank you very much. Our time is up. This is 9:45. Thank you for presenting and being ready for us. And I hope your link is available on the Slack channel.
Yeah, I'll post it.
Okay, Mr. Michael, please, is your links to the video available on the Slack channel?
Sorry, I wasn't able to record because up till now my system was giving me problems. I was trying to do it, but then it wasn't working. Somehow the thing works today. So maybe I can record it later and send.
Please, we're expecting it. We're interested in your presentation.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have come to the end of today's KD. It's time for teams' respective stand-ups. Thank you and goodbye.